You know, the human voice is probably the most powerful instrument in the entire world, and it's an instrument that every single one of us plays. The real question is, are we playing it well? So let's dive into how you can speak so that people actually want to listen.
Have you ever had that feeling? You're in a conversation, you're trying to make a point, and it just feels like you're talking to a brick wall. It's super frustrating, right? Well, it turns out this is a really common problem. And the good news is, it's something we can totally fix. I mean, just think about the stakes here for a second. The very same tool, your voice, has the power to start a war or to say, I love you. That's an incredible spectrum of power. So how do we make sure we're using our voices to connect with people, to build things up, instead of tearing them down? To figure out how to get people to listen, we first have to understand the habits that make them tune out in the first place. So let's start by looking at what you might call the 7 deadly sins of speaking. First on the list, gossip. You know what I mean. Speaking badly about someone who isn't even there to defend themselves. It's such a nasty habit, because we all know that 5 minutes from now, the person gossiping will probably be gossiping about us. It just completely shatters any sense of trust. And then there's judging. It is so hard to listen to someone if you feel like you're being constantly sized up and found wanting. It just makes you want to put up a huge defensive wall, and once that wall is up, nothing gets in.
Oh, and then we have negativity. It's draining, isn't it? I once heard a story about a woman who was told, "Hey, it's October 1st today," and she just replied, "I know, isn't it dreadful?" I mean, when someone is that negative, it's really hard to listen. And right next door to negativity is its close cousin, complaining. Someone once called it viral misery, and I think that's perfect. It doesn't spread joy or positivity in the world. It just kind of pulls everyone down into the mud with you. Ah, the blame thrower. We've all met this person, haven't we? It's the person who just refuses to take any responsibility for their own actions and is always passing the blame onto somebody else. Again, it is incredibly difficult to listen to someone who operates like that. And then we've got exaggeration, or, embroidery. This habit really cheapens our language. Think about it. If everything is awesome, then what word do you use when something is truly awe-inspiring? Over time, this kind of exaggeration can bleed into straight-up lying, and of course, nobody wants to listen to a liar. And finally, there's dogmatism. This is when facts and opinions get all jumbled up. You know, when someone is just bombarding you with their opinions as if they are absolute, unshakable truths? Well, it's pretty much impossible to have a real conversation. It really is like listening to the wind. So there they are, 7 big habits we really need to try and avoid. These are the conversational traps that just make people's ears switch off. But avoiding the negative stuff, that's only half the battle. So what should we be doing instead? Let's build a new, positive foundation.
All right, let's completely flip this around and look at the positive side of things. It turns out there are 4 really powerful cornerstones that we can build our speech on to make a genuine impact.
And these cornerstones come together to form a fantastic word, hail. And just look at that definition. This is exactly how we want people to receive our words, greeted enthusiastically. So what does HAIL actually stand for?
Well, the H is for honesty, being truthful or being straight and clear. A is for authenticity, just being yourself. I is for integrity, which is all about being your word, doing what you say you'll do, so people can actually trust you. And finally, L is for love. And this doesn't mean romantic love, it just means wishing people well. When you genuinely want the best for the person you're talking to, believe me, they can feel it.
This idea of authenticity is just so important. It's about standing in your own truth. When you speak from a place that is genuinely you, and you combine that with honesty and integrity and just a basic goodwill for other people, well, that's when your words have incredible weight. That's real power. That's the foundation.
So that's what you say, but that's only part of the equation. Just as important is how you say it. The thing is, we all have this amazing vocal toolbox, but most of us have never even bothered to open it up. So let's take a quick peek inside.
Okay, first up is something called register. Now, you can talk up here, kind of in your nose. Or you can bring your voice down here into your chest. Can you hear that difference? We tend to associate depth in a voice with power and with authority. It's one of the reasons we often vote for politicians with lower voices. And here's the best part. You're in control of all of these things. You can change your timbre, that's the feel of your voice, to sound richer. You can use prosody, which is basically the sing-song quality, to avoid being monotone. You can play with your pace, speeding up when you're excited, or slowing right down for emphasis. And of course, you can vary your pitch and your volume to create contrast and really pull people in.
And here's a huge one. You do not have to fill every single second with ums and ahs. A little bit of silence can be incredibly powerful. It gives your listener a moment to actually process what you just said, and it adds so much weight to what you say next.
And look, just like a car engine, your voice works best when it's warmed up. So before your next big meeting or that important conversation, just take 30 seconds to do these. A big sigh out, some lip bubbles, a bruise sound, all the way to the siren. I know it might feel a little silly, but it's going to get your instrument totally ready to play.
Okay, let's just zoom out for a second and look at the really big picture. Why does all of this stuff matter beyond just, getting your point across in a meeting?
Well, right now, we're kind of stuck in a world that looks like that before picture. There's a lot of noise, a lot of people speaking poorly, and not a whole lot of listening going on. But what if we could change that? What if we could move to a world where we all speak powerfully and maybe even more importantly, we all listen consciously?
So let me just leave you with this one thought. What would the world actually look like if we all started to create and consume sound consciously? If we all took responsibility for our voices? It would be a world where understanding is the default. And that, well, that's an idea worth spreading.